Good morning, Barry. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Liam. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Barry, thank you very much for coming on the call. I guess this is sort of to show people who are potentially thinking about studying for a doctorate degree some of the things that we get asked a lot of questions. So, just first of all, you've worked on the Professional Doctorate program for many years now, and it's something we both do both together here at Birmingham. What is the difference between a professional doctorate and a PhD?
Okay. It is a really common question, as you say. Um, I guess it's got kind of levels to it. It can be a really simple answer, or it can be quite a detailed answer. I guess we'll we'll try and I suppose like go in the middle ground. So at one level, there's no difference because um, a doctorate's a doctorate, right? Like um, we have levels to education that are put forward by the Higher Education Funding Council, and doctoral education is level 8. So I guess irrespective of the mode of study for your doctorate, the skills that you get or that you need to get as a function of a doctorate are the same. So at one level, there's no difference. I guess if there is a difference, the difference is in probably the orientation of the research. Um, so typically, a traditional PhD would need to advance our understanding of like theoretical conceptual issues um, related to science. A professional doctorate can probably have a bit broader scope of its relevance. So it obviously can advance our understanding in a scientific way, but it can also advance our understanding of a topic within an organization or within a profession. So, for example, it can change process and practice, for example, in a football club around monitoring, or it could help us understand an issue better in the area of strength and conditioning. So in that way, I guess the focus of the research can be seen as being a bit more applied. Um, Often as well, I guess people who do professional doctorates are not necessarily trying to be full-time researchers. Um, and so often, again, the way that I talk about these two things is, I guess, a traditional doctorate is set up to make a professional researcher. A professional doctorate is set up to develop a researching professional. Um, and then the third difference sometimes is just how the educational content is organized for someone to go through the process of achieving their doctorate. So to summarize, at one level, no difference. At a different level, a difference in the orientation of the research, which is often then around whether someone wants to be a professional researcher or a researching professional, do work in their context or do work fundamentally and in the way that the education is structured and organized so that people can go through the process.
Okay. And that's really interesting. Why do I guess you might not know the answer to this, but why do you think there is that difference within the studies that, like in my head, if someone is making advancements within the workplace or their professional environment, or someone's making advances in science, they're both, they can both impact each other. I guess, like, why do you think that is?
Why can they impact each other, or why do I think there's a different focus?
So why do you think there's a different focus really? So like if I'm doing work within my professional environment in order to impact the professional environment, or I'm doing work on a PhD in order to advance the science,
Yeah.
I feel like they can both be quite similar, right?
All right. So I think I can sum that up. Can use an example, right? Can use an example of like strength training methodologies. So so to add, we know, for example, that isometric training makes people stronger. Um, showing then that isometric training makes footballers stronger is not necessarily really an advance in science, because it's not giving us new information, right? It's just giving us the same information in a different paradigm. So I would argue actually that a lot of work that's done in traditional PhDs is what I would call more applied research than like fundamental research. So there are not many sports science projects, right, that are necessarily unveiling new mechanisms of physiological function in the human body. They're often looking at that particular mechanism in relation to what happens in response to exercise. So I think it's so fundamental science then is really generating new concepts, methodologies that we don't know about. I think applied research then is really just applying some of that fundamental knowledge in a different context, so changing the paradigm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. No, that's really good. And I guess like you've been involved in professional doctorates now for a long time. Like, have they, I guess, from coming and being introduced over here, right? Like, how have they developed over the past maybe 9, 10 years?
Well, they've definitely got a lot more popular. So actually in some fields like um, health, actually, professional doctorates are really well recognized. Um, I guess in 2016, when I first became involved in these programs, they weren't common in sport and exercise science. They've become a lot more common in sport and exercise science. Um, and I think actually, like part of that is a function, I guess, of um, the requirements for people to have higher level qualification. So I definitely remember when I did my degree, like not loads of people had degrees. I guess there've been kind of like government pushes across like subsequent years since then to get people into higher education. And so what's happened is I guess there's been this this progressive increase in the level of qualification that may be seen as the gold standard qualification for a profession.
Okay.
Um, so I think that's probably like in some ways driven driven the developments across the university sector. I guess the other thing that's happened is as sports science support has grown in complexity in the sports world, the skills needed to provide that sports science support have always started to increase. So now you've got a situation where you've got people wanting higher level skills, and that drive for higher level skills then I guess has like facilitated the increase in universities doing programs above, I guess, like a traditional M level in order to support the development of those skills. And the reality is lots of people who would take on the doctorate program at Birmingham would not be able to come back and do a PhD in a traditional way because inherently they don't want to give up their jobs. They've actually got access to some really exciting, interesting data streams. They've got some really brilliant questions actually that need answering. Um, so in some ways, that form of study is not really accessible to them either.
Mm. No, that links into what I was about to ask you then, really. So if someone is listening to this, right, and they're thinking, should I PhD, should I professional doctorate, what advice would you give them to think about?
Well, look, I mean, I think for me, I guess the key piece of advice is what would work best for them. You know, doctoral study is difficult. I mean, it requires focus and time commitment, you know, and that focus and time commitment at times isn't insignificant as a function of I guess like the level that you're trying to work. So I guess finding a way that fits with your ability to interact with the learning opportunities, I think is key. So, you know, if you are in an organization, you've got some really interesting applied questions. If you're not able to go into the university regularly to attend labs, then, and if those questions are applied in nature, then maybe it's a good way. If you are able to carry out research projects in institutions and all of those things, then maybe that's better for you. So, you know, I guess, as I say, at one level, these programs are doing exactly the same thing. They're teaching research training skills. So actually deciding on what format allows you to access it, I guess, is probably the key thing, really, because I suppose definitely in my mind, I became passionate about developing doctorate programs because I guess I was inherently trying to create opportunities for non-traditional students to come and have this form of education, not keep it just the reserve of people who are, I don't know, like out of university, who can take on full-time research programs that are funded in universities for the cost of a stipend, really.
Okay. Oh, cool. And I guess, like, is there any last points that we don't seem to have discussed today that you'd like to get across?
Well, I mean, I think before you really decide on the mode of doctoral study, I guess you've really got to make sure that actually that is the right CPD opportunity for you. I guess often when I talk to potential students, they come on a call or they start the conversation by saying that they've got this kind of like project that they want to do. And I guess I kind of say to them, all right, well, that's really exciting, but very few people in the course of a doctorate like find answers to the questions that they want to find, because inherently the question is probably more complicated than they think at that level. So really, if you were coming on a program to do a doctorate, irrespective of its nature, I said you would predominantly be signing up to learn research skills and to change your processes, and the project is just a vehicle for learning. So that's not often how people think about doctoral study. And actually, if they do think about it like that, maybe that's not what they actually wanted to do. Maybe they did just want to find a quick and easy solution to a problem that they've got. And also, excuse me, in this modern world, right, there's a million CPD opportunities for people. So actually finding one that is right for you is key. And I guess I really value the relationships that I have with doctoral students. So I don't really want those relationships to go wrong on the basis of everybody getting into them under the wrong guise, if that makes sense. So actually just having some time to talk through what it really is and what they really want ensures that actually you can signpost them to the right thing if it's not actually what you're offering, because this is definitely not for everybody. And I think we just are trying to really create the right experience for the right people. And so I'm happy to try and signpost people other places if it's actually not for them once they've had that conversation.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, Barry. Well, thank you very much for coming and chatting. Really
Right.
appreciate it.
No problem, Liam. Let's hope this helps people make those decisions around that if it's useful.
Yeah, and I guess if anyone does want to chat about it, we can put your details and my details, emails in the blog post.
Yeah, look, it's a you know it's a real privilege, I think, to be able to work with anybody on the development trajectory. And I guess in my view, from an educational perspective, actually, this is probably now one of the few opportunities you have to really work in detail with someone one-to-one over a long period of time. So it's always fascinating, I guess, just to have those conversations with people and to try and help support them or direct them to something else if that's relevant. So yeah, no, for sure. More than happy to do that.
Okay, cool. All right, Barry. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Liam.